Hey everybody, the quality is kind of iffy on this video today. As you can see, I don't have good lighting, so it's real fuzzy. The camera apparently can't compensate for that because it's kind of sucks. I have this weird, it looks like I have this weird bump on my face, but I don't. It's just the way the lighting is, I guess. I don't know, like my head's bulging. I had to be in my not usual place. I'm upstairs in the bedroom because people are using the downstairs for things, and I can't monopolize the living room for my video today. And I haven't had time to do this, and I wanted to make sure it got done so I didn't forget about it because I've been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, not on purpose, but just because it didn't register. I talked about this on an episode of Spider Does Things, the show, which is on Spotify as well as on YouTube. I think that episode is on YouTube. No, you know what? That episode is not on YouTube yet, so I'm probably going to take care of that very soon, this evening. And but I wanted to talk about Transformers 1 and give my official in-depth review and analysis of that movie. Overall, I did enjoy the movie. I did. There, we'll get some better lighting in here. Maybe I'll put it on this side. I don't know. It's my phone's flashlight now. I don't know. It's looking creepy, doesn't it? I don't know. This is just me being a goof. I don't know. Anyway, I'll just put it there. I did enjoy the movie for what it was. It was a decent enough story. It wasn't anything new. It was very similar to. Just heck with it, whatever. It was very similar to other origin stories that they've had in both the comics and some of the other shows and the games and things. The story overall is not where I have any issues, and I liked it. I liked some of the character portrayals, but I didn't like others, at least until later. I thought that Bumblebee was a bit too exuberant, but it's okay. I didn't have a huge problem with Bumblebee. Like I said, he just seemed a little bit too chipper and social, but he was relatively cheery in the cartoon. In the comics, he was not. In the comics, he got pretty dark and pretty serious much later on. And in most of the shows, other than the G1 cartoon, and in most of the live action movies, he hasn't been quite so happy go lucky. Yeah, he had Bumblebee movie and he was kind of doing goofball stuff there, but for the most part, it's been relatively serious. So, didn't really care for that too much, but it wasn't the worst. Elita 1 was probably the most on brand, I suppose, because in most media, she's a real serious, take no nonsense kind of person. I think they made her a bit too detail oriented, like real fussy almost, instead of just focusing on issues and things. She was very fussy person. Megatron was okay. I never really saw him as being into hero worship, other than maybe Megatronus. But as far as Sentinel Prime and all that, I don't know. That didn't quite sit well with me, because as much as I understand that the transformation of Megatron in the movie requires that he have a certain attitude, that he also has to get damaged, that attitude. I understand that story arc, but it just didn't seem like Megatron. And the voice actor, I don't want to talk badly about the voice actor. I think the voice actor, as a voice actor, was decent. As the character Megatron, I don't think so. I don't think he was a good Megatron. I think he did a good job voicing a character, though. If it was another character other than Megatron, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot better. And so I have nothing against him as a voice actor. I don't know why this thing keeps looking like it's sinking. Because it looks like it's going like as I'm doing this. It's kind of irritating. But I don't think he was a good Megatron. I think he's a good voice actor, and I would definitely see him in other things. But I don't think he was a good Megatron. And on to Optimus, Orion Pax. I don't think it was too bad of a choice to use Chris Hemsworth as the voice for Orion Pax. I think it fit. I think he was a bit too jokey, but I think it fit overall. And he did work a little bit too hard to try to sound like the iconic Optimus Prime voice as the movie went on. But I do think he gave it a good effort, and I think he did a better job than Megatron voice actor as far as portraying the character. In none of the previous media has Optimus or Orion Pax ever been a minor. In the G1, when they did like a back in time episode where the aerial bots went back in time and they met Orion Pax and Elita 1 before she was Elita 1, he was a laborer, which I guess is close enough, but it's still not a minor. But he was a laborer, and he would load carts and things with a friend of his who got destroyed during the episode. In every other form of media, however, he is a data clerk, or he works in a library, or in the comics, he was not only a data collector at first, but he also then got into the security in IDW. He was a security officer. He was like the one guy who didn't want to be corrupt on a corrupt Autobot police force. You know, he's never been a minor. And I think that kind of I might not have been so annoyed with it, except for the fact that this movie takes place in a part of the universe in a continuity where they'd already established that he'd been a data clerk. The continuity that they're going for is a little bit of a mishmash, I don't know, between the aligned continuity, which is the War for Cybertron games and Transformers Prime, the TV show, and the reboot of the live action stuff. Okay? From Bumblebee and Rise of the Beasts, not necessarily counting the other Michael Bay things. And in that universe, they had already established that he was a data clerk. So this is messing with an already established background in a universe that this takes place in. You know, I don't know. It's like they didn't pay enough attention to what was already there in some respects. They looked at some of the most recent things, and even then they didn't quite get it right. You know, because on Transformers Prime, he loses his memory partially and gets reverted back to Orion Pax in his head. And Megatron takes advantage of that to help search for data and things because he was a data clerk. Transformers Prime is supposed to be almost directly related to Transformers 1. They have the same composer doing music between the two and a lot of other cues and things. They have some of the very similar characters. You've got Arachnid across both of them and things like that. So I don't know. It didn't. It was a glaring oversight, and combined with the fact that they didn't act like I would think that they would act, because it doesn't reflect how they acted in most of the other forms of media. They don't come off as those characters to me. And I'm probably being nitpicky because I've been a fan since I was 3 years old. I'm probably being nitpicky. It's not as bad as the Star Wars situation. Okay, I don't even watch anything Star Wars related anymore. I gave up watching that maybe 10 years ago, maybe longer, because it wasn't Star Wars anymore. It was something else, and I haven't bothered. And I don't mean that in a culture way. I don't want people to be like, "Oh, well, you're probably one of those people who thought the Acolyte was this and this and this." And no, because I had already checked out by that point. It just didn't. None of it has clicked with me, and I haven't been interested. I don't have any political reasons not to watch it or anything like that, to put it mildly, and to put it, politely. I don't have those reasons to be upset with it. I'm not really upset. Like, when I say that, I don't mean I'm constantly every day, man, I'm mad at Star Wars because it's not what I wanted it to be. It's not that serious. It ended up not being what I had enjoyed when I was younger, and I moved on. And that's it. There's no hard feelings, you know. A lot of people like Star Wars still. A lot of people continue to watch the new stuff religiously, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not out here in the streets saying they need to go out of business. The franchise needs to be ended. I'm not one of those weird people who's just freaked out about every single thing that they do now. I mean, yeah, I was a big fan, and now I'm not. Transformers is still one of those areas where I'm still mostly a big fan, because the toys at least have honored a lot of the old legacy. They have a lot of older figures that have come back and been redone into new styles and new types and things that I like. I've gotten really big into collecting again, so that's good. As far as the toys for Transformers 1, I don't have any, and I'm probably not going to buy any. And that's not because I'm going to be like, well, I didn't like this movie so much, so I don't care about their toys. No, I just don't like the designs for the toys. I don't think some of the designs for the movie were a little too, I don't want to say cartoony, because they've always been cartoony because it's Transformers, right? It was a Generation 1 cartoon, and it's always been that way. But they don't go with my sensibilities for what I look for in a Transformers toys. Just like the live action Transformers toys. I don't have very many of those. I've only got a few because I didn't like the aesthetic. I didn't like how they looked. I don't have a single Bayverse Optimus Prime or Megatron. I have stuff from the Bumblebee movie because that was a lot closer to the G1 aesthetic while being modernized, and it looked really good. I have almost a full complete set of Bumblebee movie figures, with the exception of a few. I didn't get the 2 Decepticons that went to Earth chasing Bumblebee. I didn't care for them as characters. I mean, I didn't hate them. They served their purpose in the movie, but they were kind of throwaways to me. Didn't care. But I do have like all the Autobots, except I do have all the Autobots that were on Cybertron at the beginning of Bumblebee movie, that opening part. I have most of the Decepticons. I have like a Seeker here or there that I don't have yet, because I like that aesthetic, and I got the concept art Megatron because he looks like Megatron, even though it's live action kind of appearance, but it's better than the one from the 2007 movie. The only other Megatron in the live action that looked kind of cool was the one from The Last Night. And he just didn't look. He looked like a menacing villain, but he didn't look like a Megatron. I don't know. I got problems with those movies. But as far as Transformers 1, the pros, I did think the story was okay. I think they took some liberties with things, but I did think it was okay. And there we go. That's a little bit better. And I do like that it does kind of aesthetic wise blend into Transformers Prime, because the Quintessons look kind of like otherworldly, like the way that the Insecticons and the Predacons looked in Transformers Prime. You can see some design similarities, and it flows well from one to the other, I think, there in that regard. So if you're taking that as a continuity that's being preserved, then I liked that. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of Transformers Prime, but it was okay. It was one of the better shows to have come out in a long time. I didn't like the Energon trilogy or the Unicron trilogy, whatever it was, the anime one. I didn't like animated. I hated animated. I just could not get past the style, and the voice acting was just. I didn't get into Earthspark because it just, I don't know. It looked kind of funny again, as if it was more play school style for kids. And no matter how many serious issues they tried to bring up with it, I couldn't get past that. It just didn't look right. So, but I did like the War for Cybertron trilogy on Netflix, which was basically a set of miniseries. I liked the look of Combiner Wars and the Power of the Primes and Titans Return that was up on YouTube, even though the story for that was kind of like, but you know, it still made sense, I guess. But yeah, pros, Transformers One is a decent enough story, decent enough portrayals of some of the ancillary characters and their motivations and things. Cons, the main cast just didn't hit for me, mostly. I just couldn't get into it. And I get maybe it's because they're supposed to come off as younger and oblivious to everything, but they just don't match most other depictions in almost every other form of the media that's out there, in either the comics or the various cartoons. And they don't match the depictions of themselves in the existing continuity that they are supposed to be a part of, which is the biggest thing. If you're going to make the characters be different enough that they've got a whole new origin, a whole new attitude, all that kind of stuff, they need their own continuity. They can't be in something else that's already established, because then you're retconning and then you're messing with established history, and it just gets confusing. And then I don't know. I like things to continue to make sense from one to the other, from beginning to end. I like there to be a clear progression or evolution from one thing to another. And here there isn't. There's breaks and there's things that don't match up, and it's too glaring for me to get past. But and and Shockwave was terrible. Shockwave was awful. No version of Shockwave that I've ever seen in any of the other media has acted like the one in this one. And while he only had a few lines, they were only there for jokes. Shockwave existed in this movie to act as a punchline. And he's my favorite character, and he's never been like that. I don't like it at all. Just leave him out. He doesn't even match. He might be like the Shock Blast character from the Armada trilogy, because that was supposed to be a different character, and he was kind of crazy and insane, like a berserker, like a nutcase or something like that. Maybe he's kind of like that. But as far as every other version of Shockwave that's ever existed in the media, it wasn't him. It just wasn't. Soundwave was okay. It was strange hearing Steve Buscemi as Starscream. But you know what? They also added a nice little thing for why his voice sounds kind of like and whiny in the G1, because he got partially crushed by Megatron. So they gave him like this glitchy kind of voice later on. And you know what? That kind of made some sense. I kind of was like, all right, yeah, I'm into stuff like that. That's an in-universe explanation for different things. Not that he needed a reason for why his voice the way it was. Besides the fact that in Transformers Prime, again, in a glaring bit of continuity problems, he's voiced by Steve Bloom, and his voice is fine. Speaking of Steve Bloom, he's in this movie because he's in everything Transformers related these days. that's not live action movies. He's in he was the radio announcer, and he was, I think, one of the security people with Darkwing. He was the other guy with Darkwing, I think. Which they didn't name, but it was probably Skyquake, but they didn't name him. But yeah, all in all, it was positive enough. I watched it twice. I watched it once by myself and once with the family so that my daughter could see it. Because I wanted to watch it first by myself to make sure there wasn't anything objectionable in there, like any, language or overly. I know it's robots, but overly violent stuff. She doesn't need to be seeing torture scenes and stuff. And that happens sometimes in Transformers. But it didn't have anything like that. It's friendly enough for you and your kids to watch. So if you're wondering about it and you haven't seen it yet and you want to watch it with your family, it's safe. It is safe. And the family enjoyed it too. They enjoyed it more than I did because they're not as invested in some of these points that I've made as I am. But all in all, it was a positive experience and it was a decent movie. And it's kind of interesting because there won't be any more necessarily. Well, there might be, but they won't be funded by Hasbro. Hasbro apparently recently announced that they are not co-funding any more Transformers movies. A lot of people have taken that to mean that they're not going to make any or that they're not going to be involved in any anymore. But I see it as they're not going to put any of their money towards it, but they will greenlight things for other people if other people want to put money towards it. So you might see a lot of third-party, independent kind of projects coming up if Hasbro feels like giving them the blessing. You know what I mean? I don't know how that's going to work out, but I think that's the way it's going to be. I certainly won't mind not seeing any more live-action disasters, because Bumblebee was decent, and then they kind of backslid a little bit with Rise of the Beasts. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't quite the same level as Bumblebee was. And they went to relying on some of the same old tropes and things that the other live-action movies had gotten to, because after the first one, it all went downhill into a gutter. But personal opinions, you might feel differently, and that's okay. You're allowed to feel differently. I'm not going to be upset with you, and I'm not going to argue with you about it. I got this sunbeam just like kind of going across my chin here, cutting off my head. But that's it. That's my Transformers 1 review. And tell me what you thought about it. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear how you feel. And if you're going to disagree with me, by all means, I don't mind. Just be nice about it. Don't be like, you're a big idiot because this was this and this was this and you're so stupid. Don't say anything like that because I'm going to delete your comment and I'm going to ignore you. Be nice. You can disagree 100% with me. I don't mind. I'm not going to sit there and just, oh, yeah, well, blah, and your mom. I'm not going to do that kind of stuff with you. Okay? We can all be adults, even though we're playing with kids' toys and watching kids' movies. We can all be adults about the discussion. Okay? So that's it. That's my review of Transformers 1. And I will catch you folks next time.